They say this is a classic series where you have classic racing, and it doesn't get more classic than this venue. You put the historic layout through, shoot straight down the Mulsanne, no room for chicanes here. This is going to be an all-out brawl to end the season. Championship wrapped up, but one race still to be decided. It is, of course, your classic Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series, and it's here with us on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone watching around the world. My name is Jake Sperry, and alongside me for the ride today is Joey Atterbury. Daniel Costello is in the director's chair. He swivels around to use the cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But the circuit day 24 Heures du Monde, the historic layout, a circuit which needs no introduction. It's one of the big three, and you must say they do not make them like this anymore. To understand how this circuit was made, let's take a look at our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Le Mans. When you talk about legendary circuits, this is a place that stands among the most famous in the world. Part permanent road course, part temporary street circuit, it traipses through the countryside just south of the city where it gets its namesake. Its size matches its reputation as well, clocking it at 8.5 miles, which equates to roughly 13.5 kilometers. However, when you take into account that it's split by only 33 turns, the frighteningly fast nature of this circuit becomes clear. Most of the corners have been added over the century of history it's experienced, but many have become renowned and respected. The two turns at the opposite ends of the massively long Mulsanne Straight play equally important roles. Tertre Rouge requires a great exit in order to not lose massive amounts of time, while Mulsanne Corner takes bravery and precision in order to brake as late as possible and keep opponents from passing you on the way in. There's also hair-raising moments like the tricky entry to Indianapolis, or the close walls along the bridge section in the Porsche curves. To win here, drivers will need a very low downforce setup, a good sense of strategy, and heaps of bravery. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is the crown jewel of endurance racing, which many drivers dream of someday winning and many fans flock to witness in person. Once you've driven the track here on iRacing, it's easy to see why.
13.57 kilometers, 32 turns on today's layout, and something that quite simply looks incredible as a track. It is one of the fastest circuits you find out there in the world by average top speed. And when you take out those two chicanes, Joey, it gets even quicker. And they're going to be going and hitting the limiter at over 325 kilometers an hour today.
I'm looking at the speeds, and I see 203 miles an hour in qualifying right now. But here is the track, Le Mans, 31 turns, just under 8.5 miles. And we are doing that pre-1990 layout, like Jake was saying, the historic layout. So for the most part, the track is the same. Where the big difference is on that Mulsanne straightaway, where we typically have those two chicanes to really slow down the cars. Well, guess what? They are completely removed. That means we are going to be flat out for, you could pretty much make a coffee, maybe make a ham sandwich down that all the way to the Mulsanne corner. And then remember, another huge straightaway down to Indianapolis. But I think the tricky area of today is going to be, first of all, staying with the draft pack. You got to be connected with everybody. And then second, you have to keep the car underneath you through the back third of this track. Lots of switchbacks, lots of chicanes, and you're not going to have any downforce to help you.
And of course, with such a long lap as is this one mistake along this very long lap is going to cost your qualifying time. So maybe we might see a shuffled up grid here today. The championship is pretty much locked up under key at this moment after a sensational season for Kimmo Villiainen. He finds himself 88 points clear of his Finnish compatriot Antti Lepisto, with Juho Rainer making up that 1, 2, and 3. Hugh Haycox finds himself in 4th position in the championship ahead of Gernot Fritzsche. They're the Austrian legend of the Lotus 79 series. You got Barry West having a fantastic season. He's up in 6th with Jack David Spickett 7th and Sam Ryman, of course, a good friend of ours here at the Global SimRacing Channel, in 8th position. Oye Shamayoa finds himself in 9th position overall, with Ian Haycox rounding out the top 10 of the championship. A very solid effort that's gone along there, and it looks very similar here, Joey, in F2.
Thomas Silbernagel put his foot down, right? 64 points ahead of back here at Chris Roberts, Thomas Silbernagel, and then Timothy Vanderberg just about 10 points back. Miguel Moreland also in here. Keith Herner inside of the top 5 as well. Kurt Clapper, Arnold Cook, Pablo Suarez, Robert Simpkins, Cam Porter, all of these are regulars here in this F2 Points Championship, and for the most part, I all see them here today. I can't wait to see what the next season brings us as well.
I can't wait either. It's going to be something where you always see that development season on season, week on week, practice session by practice session, and that is always going to be worth its point of call. This is the final round of the championship, round 12 of 12, just the 11 laps to deal with here today, and they're currently qualifying at around a 3-minute 22, 3:23 pace, so we're expecting that to fly about in around 35 to 40 minutes worth of time. Now, it's an open setup, so everyone's going to have a slightly different way they're getting that car to work, but expect the most slippery and streamlined machinery that you'll ever see out here with the ability to attack along the Mulsanne. There is no spare car available to drivers here today, so if you put it in one of the many, many miles of guardrail around this circuit and the public roads of Pays de la Loire, then you are going to find yourself out of this race with just the 19 drivers here today. And of course, because this is an iRacing official server, a drive-through penalty comes along at 17 instant points. Disqualification finds itself at 25. But when you've got not much where you can really run off and create all those dramas, I doubt that we'll see anyone really knocking on the door of that. But Joey, we are in the middle of qualifying, and it is a unique qualifying session. While the time does remain the same, 8 minutes, 2 laps, drivers, when they're looking to get that lap time started, have a short run. They don't have to do a full out lap to get themselves up to speed.
No, iRacing, basically, they've got a virtual HQ, and Barney sits all the drivers down, right, and is like, look, I know you're not going to make it all the way around for 3 laps, so we'll set you out basically right in front of the Ford chicane, and you can start the lap there, and that way all of the drivers can, in fact, do their 2 complete laps. Kind of like when we go to the Nürburgring, right? The Nordschleife is just way too long to complete the laps there, so they just kind of modify how you qualify a little bit.
They absolutely do. At the moment, Jack David Spickett, fastest driver of the lot. We're on board, though, with Antti Lepisto, the number 1, the highest iRacing driver in this field, as he makes the charge out of Van Arsch corner and over towards the Porsche curves, the most famous lefts and rights out there in the world. Some would say the most original of original chicanes, really trying to pilot it in onto that inside, and you're in it for the ride here. It's a roller coaster every which way you go around these corners.
And we mentioned no downforce typically on the setups because you want the top speed down the Mulsanne. So these corners right here, you actually have to kind of tiptoe through them. You always have to be ahead when it comes to the switchbacks, but not only ahead of the track, you're going to have to be ahead of the car and that back end stepping out on you.
Out of Maison Blanche, Gernot Fritsch goes nearly 2 seconds quicker on a 3:21. It's looking good through the rear cordemont for Antti Lepisto as he tries to improve on his lap time. What's he going to find? It's a 21.7. He goes third. Villiakainen second. Ferran Grau has moved up then into the top 4. Patrick Samaran going forth. But what about JDS? Has Pepsi Man got anything left in the machinery as he looks to make a drive for the line? Over he goes, 21.4, and it's only good enough for the front row. So he thought he had a chance, but front row, you don't shake a stick at there. That was a huge qualifying session, and the grid is going to line up as follows here at the Circuit Day 24 Hours du Mans. That was magical and rolling back the years. Gernot Fritsch on the pole, 3:21.153, 3/10 clear of Jack David Spickett, who's alongside. Kimmo Villiakainen, the champion, is third with his compatriot Antti Lepisto there in 4th. It's then Patrick Samaran with a great qualifying in 5th, and Ferran Grau in 6th position, who was on a clutch lap because his first lap didn't count. You then got Dylan Freckleton in 7th along with Timothy Vandenberg, and then Daniel Banker and Miguel Moreland make up the top 10.
And then on row number 6, we've got Ricardo Ruiz starting in 11th, Cam Porter next to him in 12th, Barry West in 13th, Arnold Cook in 14th, Travis Jagelheiner in 15th, Daniel Gallus in 16th, AJ Roper 17th, and then the final couple cars back here, Kurt Clapper in 18th, and then the final on row 10, Andy Hugel.
Travis Jagelheiner was really struggling out there to get a time in. He had to jump out of the session and back into it just to get himself there. And of course, those final 5 drivers who did not set a time in qualifying are lined up by their iRating here today. Track temperature is 93 Fahrenheit, 34 degrees. You'd put that in the middle, not too hot, not too cold. Winds from the northwest at 19 Ks, 12 mile an hour, might have a little bit of something to say here. And of course, this is the last week before the dreaded rain starts to find itself into a few iRacing servers thanks to the Tempest system. So that's something definitely to keep an eye out on as they go through. Jagelheiner has had himself an issue, so he will not take to the start, and he might not even take to the race with the troubles that he's having getting himself loaded in. So it will just be already down to 18 drivers that we find ourselves with, and opportunities now knock through 11 laps worth of racing. The final chance to say, I can do it better than anybody else can. Green flag in the air, and we're underway. It's a very mixed start off of the front. Look at Villiakainen. Look to try and thread the needle here. Running up towards that opening chicane. Jack David Spickett on the inside. Lifting out goes Gurno Breacher. JDS sweeps around the outside and holds the race lead out of the first Dunlop chicane.
And that Pepsi machine leads that entire field, like you said, a little bit further back, too wide, but an impressive start from JDS. Our pole sitter, Gernot Frisha, slips all the way back to 3rd place, and this is a car moving up. I believe this is Ricardo Ruiz in the 5, taking away 10.
Yeah, he's certainly trying to take away some positions, and in the early stages, it's how you manage to shuffle about here and gain a little bit here and gain a little bit there. Miguel Morland at the moment's looking behind him. That's Cam Porter, who's trying to find a position and gain an extra one here along this long Mulsanne, but already some moves being made up and down the order. Antti Lepisto is searching to try and get through, but he's on the wrong side of the road. Look at him in the slipstream, 333 kilometers an hour in the toe. It's impossible. You hit a brick wall if you're out there on the right-hand side. Here's another look then on the outside. Dylan Freckleton this time here, trying to go through. Oh, they're going to split the middle. Oh, that's brilliant.
Oh, and 330 plus kilometers an hour, like you were saying, transfers about 208 miles an hour as they go down the Mulsanne. But something, Jack David Spickett, I think he might have a little bit more wind cranked into the car. He had about 9/10 going on to the Mulsanne. He's already in 3rd.
He was only doing 320 on the straight, so he was losing upwards of about 13 Ks on that run. Villiakainen on the brakes into Mulsanne corner, and that's going to be so difficult. The brakes are going to be so cold, the tyres are going to be icy, you're going to have to dance, and now you've got that run back to Indianapolis corner, which turns along next. Troubles at the back of the field, though, as AJ Roper, the Canadian, finds himself in trouble.
Yeah, I believe that was off of the Mulsanne corner at the end of the straightaway there as we get Timothy Vandenberg side by side here with Patrick Samarin arguing for 7th, and Timothy is going to take that position heading into Indianapolis on the first lap.
Samaran is going backwards here on this opening lap. He started off in 5th position. He's now back into 8th, and he is looking like he is going to keep on dropping those places. Arnold Cook surprised to be in top split for one of the first times ever as they all hit the brakes hard at Arnage corner. It's so deceptively tight down there at that section. It's one of the slowest corners on the circuit, and everybody realizes when it's so trimmed out, when you're having to rely on mechanical grip through that corner, nobody ever has any in any vehicle.
Well, not only that, but it approaches you so fast after you've been flat out. Watch Ricardo as he pokes the nose down, thinks better of it on the first lap here. But to your point, Jake, that section of corners, you've been flying down the Mulsanne, you've been flying down the straightaway to get to Indianapolis, and then all of a sudden it approaches you very, very fast at about 40 miles an hour minimum speed.
And look at this, half a lap down is Travis Jagelheiner, who is desperately trying to recover his iRating and safety rating here at half a lap away It's going to be a very lonely 11 laps for him to try and complete this race. But a lap then will be scored complete, and it's now starting to get busy down at the chicanes, and this is where you're going to see those slowdown penalties really start to crop up. And Cam Porter, one of the big ones who pick up the wrong way on it, having to lose a bucket of time to go on forward, now allows Miguel Morland to be attacked here by Ricardo Ruiz on that run forward. The classic McLaren livery there goes through, and Miguel Morland has to wait behind. Nothing he could do about that. That was as comfortable of a pass as you could see.
And you talked about Cam Porter getting that slowdown, skipping the chicane basically, and they give you a slowdown time penalty, but as long as you can stay within that draft pack, you are A-okay. If you lose touch, that's when it's kind of the danger area.
Yeah, and it's all about danger. Who's got danger here? Who's got danger there? And on the back of the Raccoon Racing car is Jack David Spickett, who sits underneath. I think he's got a car here for a little bit of higher downforce. Watch out on the left-hand side, because Gernot Fritsch is now going to rocket ship his way through. Oh, hello. You can't miss him there in yellow as he looks to try and navigate his way through. He will move up into the race lead only by 1 wheel length, and now he hits the air, and this is where slipstream works from behind for Villiakainen. He's more slipstreamed, he's more streamlined, and as such, he can start to poke his nose in front as the curvature helps him.
Yeah, and I do think that JDS is running maybe 1 degree of wing more than these two. You see the front two just completely even on that top speed. Now, hit the brakes into the Mulsanne corner, but what I think JDS is trying to do here, Jake, is basically stay attached to the rear wing the entire race, and maybe on the last couple laps, take advantage of that final third sector where you can use that downforce and make a surprise pass. But he's got to keep up right now.
Well, that's the key. You've got to stay within 1.5 seconds to have that benefit of the slipstream around here. And, of course, there's a number of areas where you can drop all that time. But Villiakainen, out of the throttle goes Gernot Fritsch. And just like that, he's now going to find himself back in line once more with Villiakainen. Your race leader, Arnold Koch, is also going to be out there trying to find his pass around the outside, heading towards Indianapolis corner. Miguel Morland able to hold that station for the time being. Andy Hugel just behind, watches and waits.
Oh, and you saw Andy just with a little bit of a check up there right behind Miguel, going into that extremely slow right-hander. So I have a feeling the back half of this field, it's still very, very scrappy. They're still trying to figure out who's got the pace, who's got the top end, and where is to fight, and basically where to run away from.
Exactly. Ricardo Ruiz here is one such driver. He looks at Dylan Freckleton. He looks at Barry West. Baz holding on the group here at 10th position. And everybody starts to form into their own little group of 3, group of 2. There's an example of the dirty air for Dylan Freckleton as he now attacks Maison Blanche here and now really looks to try and attack through the small left and right, past the karting circuit on the inside, and then over towards that Ford chicane in the rear corner mod. Look at that for a dive by Freckleton. He absolutely had him for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh, and then we saw Miguel Morland try to go around the outside of Barry West, and Barry was like, not going to happen here. You're going to have to figure out a new way around. I know that Barry's been extremely competitive, especially this season here, so it's good to see him getting the elbows out, fighting for that top 10.
Yeah, you've got to get those elbows out, especially in the mid-pack of a series like this. You've got to be alert and you've got to be aggressive. Over to Tetra Rouge corner here, which is the gateway to top speed infinitum, some would say. And those fabled trees on the left-hand side that have been moved back in recent years after the passing of Alan Simonson. But here is Gernot Fritsch moving over to that left-hand side, using that overspeed quicker, getting himself to the right place. Little blink there by Jack David Spickett. It's not going to help matters. But again, when they reach top speeds, JDS gives the help to Kimmo Villiakainen. There's nothing that Fritsch can do. He's not being helped.
And I know that JDS isn't pushing Villiakainen out front, but basically the longer aerodynamic shape just means that you have a higher top speed. And here it's pretty even. I'm looking 204 miles an hour is what these cars are stalled out at. And JDS is just kind of sitting there, hanging out, checking the differential fluid, making sure everything's okay in the transmission of those cars.
Look, if this is going to be run, rinse and repeat here all the way to lap 11, at what point does Gernot Fritsch not want to give? Slightly a little bit there given right at the end of the straight there by Jack David Spickett, but as Villiers pretty much commands that inside line, there's not much really that can be done by Gernot Fritsch. He's now being hounded by Jack David Spickett, and lest we forget at 1.1 seconds back there, Antti Lepisto will happily pounce on anybody who makes a mistake in this front three.
Well, and let's talk about this battle right here because JDS is attached to it. However, he just doesn't. Oh, yeah, I believe that was Andy Hugel back there, back in the 16th, 17th spot as JDS is looking around the outside of our leader in Indianapolis. And I'm sorry, that was Gernot. It's going to open the door for JDS here in second.
It is, but over on that run, it's so short to Arnage. You've got to have a little bit of overlap if you want to make it happen, or the longest braking marker ever if you want to make that pass a reality. So it is the Fantastic Four now at the front because Lepisto's got himself within that range too, so he could become a factor here in this race. But crucially, Kimmo Villiers happy to take the reins at the front of this field in at the early stages around the circuit, the 24 Hours du Mans. There is Lepisto in fourth position, and here is the GSRC replay. This is what happened to Andy Hugel, and we're going to see a lot of this here today, Joey. Drivers overcooking it on the brakes because they haven't had to use them for so long here at the Mulsanne corner.
Well, and you also feel like you can make a move into that giant brake zone. So even if you overshoot it by a couple feet when you're doing 200 plus miles an hour, a couple feet translates to a long distance when you get to the apex.
Oh, very wide line by Jack David Spickett there. Over in third position, Antti Lepisto will now pounce and will fly on through into third position through the long Dunlop curve, which opens out the lap here at Le Mans. These two at risk of being dropped, and also Timothy Vandenberg and Daniel Banker. That's Banker flying around the outside, and that puts him +3 for the day. He's one of the big movers in the field. Andy Hugel has been looking around. He was the biggest mover for a time, but of course with his mistake he's dropped back. So now you would argue it is in fact Daniel Banker, one of the biggest movers in this pack.
Yeah, he is, and he's got a little bit of a mountain to climb to go catch the next car because Farron Grau has kind of run up the road a little bit as we check back in. Now this is Barry West currently holding off Miguel Moreland, Arnold Cook, Cam Porter. They are all involved in this battle, so there's lots of stuff going on a little bit further back, and up front it's now the 2x2 because remember Jack David Spickett had that little mistake in the Ford chicane. Nothing's changed between Villiers and Frische, maybe about a half a car different this time down the Mulsanne.
Oh, now they're going to start squeezing over the crown of the road, and this is where it's going to get really interesting here, Joey, because that crown of the road here, effectively, you've got a road that wants to go to the left and wants to go to the right because that's where the drivers drive on it. So when you've got yourself these two drivers and you're fighting for supremacy, you'd argue that if you want to have the most amount of grip, and these cars are the forefathers of that aerodynamic down effect that you get in the modern Formula One cars, of course, ground effect, you'd say middle of the road is the perfect place to be.
Yeah, 100%. And something else that I'm noticing about those ground effects in that top speed, Jake, remember JDS and Antti Lepisto, they had lost a little bit of touch. And I'm sorry, we're going to look at this because it's a little bit more exciting when you're going 3 wide at 200 miles an hour.
Well, Barry West does the wise thing. He backs out. That's Miguel Moreland and Arnold Cook. And Koch on the inside, trying to make it happen. There's a lock-up there from Barry West as well as Miguel Moreland. Both of them start to run a little bit wide, and that gives Arnold Koch then the opportunity to move forward. They've also got to be careful behind of Roper and Porter, but as Banker and Vandenberg continue to have their race, they're never going to let this one go. Daniel Banker stuck out in the dirty stuff on the outside of the corner before Indianapolis, sees the banking used by Timothy Vandenberg to fly on through.
Nicely done, and it'll be interesting to see if any of these drivers really spread out at all. I really feel that Le Mans, this specific track with these setups, it promotes draft pack racing, so as soon as one kind of runs away from the other, it turns into practice laps, but when we get these big groups of 3 and 4, it just constantly swaps back and forth.
It absolutely does, and we've seen so often that back and forth be so crucial in terms of who does what, and a lot of drivers are pushing at this moment. Jack David Spickett trying to stay on the back of Antti Lepisto and co. But you look at Kimmo Villiakainen, he is from an elite list of classic racers over in that Raccoon Racing team. You look at Topi Kortaniemi, you look at Andy T, you absolutely look at what he's capable of doing. Villiakainen's just another tick mark in the box of great drivers as Freacher sets the fastest lap for 3:22.3.
Well, and if you want to talk about Kimmo and what he's done this season, I mean, look at the points, look at the results. He has really taken it up a notch this year. So I think that Villiakainen is deserving of that points championship. As we're watching Cam Porter, AJ Roper, this is once again the battle back here for about 11th through 15th, and it has yet to stop. It is all tooth and nail.
AJ Roper's lucky to still have any semblance of a front wing on his piece of machinery there. His Lotus very nearly was looking more 49 and 79 as he nearly ran into the back of Barry West. But Gernot Freacher once again be very quick as they pass the stadium on the right-hand side, the very lovely KFC that's over there as well. But now here comes the opportunity to try and get close. And how clever does Gernot Freacher want to be? Is he just going to sit behind Villiakainen this time? 3:26 on the straight from Villiakainen. Freacher a K faster at every point. And watch on the road. Look at all those sparks that are coming off of the back of Kimmo Villiakainen's piece of machinery. Every single micro bump is going to be showering the back of Gernot Freacher.
It is, and I think that they're plenty content to do this, quite honestly, Jake. Now that they've ditched out on Lepisto and Spickett, I was looking, it was about 1.4 seconds going on to the straightaway, and now it's stretched out to 2.2 seconds. So just them by themselves going down the straightaway, not even doing anything, has gapped out over half a second on these two, and it's just all down to that top speed.
Well, I'm just looking at it. It's 3:24 for Antti Lepisto. Villiakainen has got 2 or 3 Ks difference on the straight. Banker again here on the outside. Timothy Vandenberg does well. You look back down the group again. Arnold Kusch is going to go at it the entire time with Miguel Morland. There's nothing that's going to separate these drivers except an incident out there. And look at them squirrel on the brakes. How cold their brakes are. How little the confidence is every time they go along that long stretch. Part of the reason why they put those 2 chicanes in that we're not running here today is to just keep some heat in the tires by the time they get down there.
You know, that's a great point, and I've always learned from my mistakes on the racetrack, if you got cold tires, if you got cold brakes, you better test that brake pedal before you actually step on it. You're in iRacing, it doesn't quite work that way.
No, it doesn't quite, but you still have that worry that you're going to hit the brakes and maybe you've just hit that mark slightly different to what you thought you would. West looking behind, Roper again trying to find a move. He looks to the outside here at Arnage corner. It's flat, 90-degree right, wide he goes. Barry West gives that one up to AJ Roper. You're not going to have an argument out of him. That is pretty much as clean as you like in terms of a pass. Barry West finds that he's going down the train. He's getting decoupled from a couple carriages.
Yeah, and remember, I was talking about how great Barry was doing earlier in the race, arguing over that 10th place position. So evidently something wrong out here. And I think there might even be damage with Barry West because I just noticed Cam Porter fly right on by. Definitely problems with that number 8.
Yeah, that's not going to be good at all. We are going to take a little look further back because it sounds like there's been an issue out there for Kurt Clapper here in this race. He's up through the opening section of track. Not the most traditional place that you see an incident happen. Into that Dunlop chicane, and he finds himself around. Not how he would like to go. Of course, there is a million miles of runoff through the section of circuit as wide goes Villiakainen there for a brief moment. So that was big, I would say, in the context of Kurt Clapper's race, but he's crucially made sure he's kept the car racing out there. You can't go too wide there if you're Jack David Spickett, otherwise you are going to be at risk of a slowdown penalty, and they do get caught at Tetra Rouge. Look at Lepisto, though. He's done so well. He's caught the back of the group.
Yeah, I was going to say it's really tough luck for JDS right now. On one of the opening laps, he overshot the final chicane, and I believe basically the same thing happened. And it all happened just as Anti Lepisto caught the group. So all of that work that JDS and Anti Lepisto were doing, well, it's only going to give the ticket to Lepisto to that front battle.
Absolutely, it's a golden ticket at that. Gernot Fritsch, for the first time, takes the race lead here at the halfway stage. Lap 6 here of 11 around the circuit day 24 hours du Mans. Here is the opportunity for Villiers-Kynen, though, to go back. Which way do you want to go? Do you want to go left? Do you want to go right? Over to the inside, half defending then goes Gernot Fritsch. And now for Villiers-Kynen on that outside. He's going to try and be patient. Thought about a little lunge at the inside, but now I don't have to make as much of an aggressive run here. I can sit back. And one thing we haven't talked about here today, Joey, fuel. You're spending 75% of the time at full throttle. You'll need to save some if you're out there in the front.
Well, there's that, but I also think the dirty air, and we're watching the pack a little bit further back, but this is the first time that Gernot Fritsch has really led the race going into some sections that you're using the clean air. It'll be interesting to see how Villiers-Kynen responds.
Yeah, and there is AJ Roper jumping through Miguel Morland for position. That then the shove up to P12 with Arnold Koch just in front. They group half a minute off of the leaders the last time they crossed the line. So they are certainly having to deal with a lot out there at the moment, and they're finding out on that run to Indianapolis corner that AJ Roper's come to race, and he just flies down the inside. Arnold Koch not wanting to fight that one, heading to Indianapolis. There's the confidence of overtake beyond overtake.
I saw 6 miles an hour difference there, so either Arnold running a really high downforce setup or something was going on, and this is still Cam Porter versus Barry West, the two red cars out there. And I mentioned that Barry might have had some damage on the car. I actually think it might have been a slowdown somewhere, because it seems that he's fully back up to pace.
He is back up to pace, and he is back ahead of Cam Porter now, who will have work to do to try and get back forward in this run, and he is looking for as slick of a move as possible. He might want to try and put a little bit of veneer through on it at the Porsche curves. You don't often see a move there. I just think Barry's got no confidence here when he's got the downforce. It's so trimmed out that he's got no confidence when he's going through these corners, because he's not using any of the aerodynamic grip available to him. That's why Cam Porter can get around at the Porsche curves. Barry's got no confidence there.
I think you're spot on with that one. So Cam Porter can be aggressive. He's got the confidence to step on the brake pedal and turn the steering wheel.
Villiers-Kynen's off. Kimmo Villiers-Kynen off the road, heading down the hill, and he will fall back to 4th position. A rare mistake for the champion incumbent.
And remember, this was the first time that he had been following in dirty air, just a little bit, a tiny bit of a loose moment, enough of a tank slapper that he has to drive it off the course.
Oh, right through the right. Couldn't get it back to straight quick enough, and he has to take a small trip across the kitty litter, and he's now back into 4th position with Jack David Spickett. Fritsch given a lifeline 1.3 seconds down the road and clearing faster because he's got a car that's more trimmed out in a straight line. Is this the moment where Gernot Fritsch has that chance? You can't get much closer, Kimo. Look at that, it's a bump draft.
He's literally bump drafting, but what I think Himo doesn't understand is that JDS doesn't have the top speed. He's actually going to be better off just pulling out around Jack right now and passing him, so he needs to stop bump drafting and get into the clean air.
Yeah, he's going to have to make a move. He's going to have to realize he's not quick enough on the long stretch. Jack says, I work with you, Kimo, over the communications. He's wanting to work. He's wanting to find that ability to jump forward and gain some time. But will he have a car that allows him to? That's the next question. Battles continue further down as, again, Arnold Koch on the outside with AJ Roper and Miguel Morland. This group's going to go all race long with 5 to go.
And watch that white and red car of Miguel Morland. It is always so tempting when both of them are stalled out right in front. Do you poke it 3 wide? It's AJ Roper in the orange car. He's got the track position on the inside of the corner. Little bit of a lockup, and there goes Morland around.
That was a bit opportunistic by Morland. That spin's going to drop him back to the next group with Barry West and Cam Porter. If 2 red cars wasn't difficult enough, Joey, how's 3 sound?
Hey, you know what? I'm just going to look at the timing and scoring, cross my fingers, and hope I'm calling the right one.
Yeah, that's going to be rather huge out there in terms of how they go about it. But everybody now, I think, is just deciding, can they find a little bit more out there? Can they find that extra little bit of motivation that gets them an extra space going forward? That's Moreland around again. He's really struggling now.
And what can happen is that when you spin here in iRacing, you tend to really scrub the tires, really overheat the tires, and it can actually take a little while to cool them back down, especially with no downforce. It just feels like you're driving on some melted gummy bears.
Well, melted gummy bears aside, Moreland is finding out that his gummy bear is not playing ball, and he realizes right now as Freacher sets another fastest lap of the race with a 21.7 that he's having to scrap now with Andy Hugel and Daniel Gallis, who didn't set the qualifying lap time. So that's going to be the work out there of what is next for me. Just try and get as much as I can. Freacher clear, 1.3, 1.4, around that gap at the moment. He is trying desperately to break Antti Lepisto's spirit by jumping through. That last lap was 7, if not 8 tenths of a second quicker than the Finn behind. But the question will be, how hard does Journo have to push to stay away from the others? Villiers-Kainen's had a bit of a moment. I think he's now starting to overdrive.
He really is, and he's lost almost 2 seconds now. Actually, yeah, it is 2 seconds up to Jack David Spickett in third. So either some damage he got from that or just the red mist and really frustrated inside that cockpit. But I was looking at that time, Jake. It was 1.4 seconds that Gernot had on Lepisto entering the Mulsanne. We'll see what it is at the end.
Campos continuing on with Barry West, who's definitely not got a car that works when it comes to corners. Look at him slide over the curb there on the outside. Barry is pretty much trying to wrestle an octopus at the moment because that car does not like turning one bit at all.
And to kind of explain that, it's a bit like driving on snow. If you guys have ever driven on snow when you turn the wheel and just the back end steps out from you, that's exactly what Barry West is dealing with right now. Every single time he turns that steering wheel, he has no confidence and the car starts to slide. However, look at what it does. It handles real good down the straightaway. I'm checking out the speed, already 10 miles an hour, 12 miles an hour faster than Cam.
That's scary fast out there, and you take a thought about that. Barry West has got a car that's going as quick, if not quicker, than the leaders of this race. Patrick Samaran, haven't really talked much about him. He has now caught the back of Daniel Banker, who is really starting to struggle and fall backwards here in this race. So that's going to be a little problematic here, the fact that he's starting to fall on back. Moreland as well, continuing on his race here. He's hoping that he can get past Andy Hugel for place, but look at that. He pulls the end-door brake maneuver, but it's not going to pay off because he is going to make the corner here as Andy Hugel. He'll get the place.
I love that paint scheme.
Oh, Banker's off, so too is going to be Samaran, I think.
And look at that, they both hit the tow button. I think that Daniel Banker is still on the racetrack, but he has heavy damage, what looks to be on the front right of this car. So these two cars definitely came together, and I believe it all started with Daniel Banker down in Indianapolis here. Actually, no, just a complete overshoot from Samaran. You're right. Let's get the GSRC replay here, Jake. Watch the white car.
This is what happens when you outbrake yourself. Samaran misses his marker. Bang! Into the left rear tire. Samaran absolutely buries it in the tires at Indianapolis. Banker will have to get it back, but because we're at 4 laps to go, in theory, Daniel Banker can still finish this race without having to take a pit stop.
In theory, yes. We're getting down to minutia. What I was going to say is this paint scheme right here on Andy Hugel's car, I'm loving it. It is totally not relevant to these cars at all, but I love seeing the blue and the red, the STP. The only thing that I think is missing here, Jake, is the King's hat painted on the helmet.
Yeah, so that King's hat there, the crown that's going to be there, that's going to be crucial. And into the pits goes Daniel Banker, and his day is pretty much going to be written off because there is no fast repair available. He'll be stuck in with everything he's got. Now, Jack David Spickett set the fastest lap of the race last time by a 320.910. absolutely brilliant in terms of lap time. He's got the gap down under a second now to Antti Lepisto. If there's any hope for Antti Lepisto, he's got to work with JDS.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't want to be the storm cloud, and rain on everybody's party. I just don't see these two cars working together on the straightaway in order to catch Gernot Frische. Now, if they can make some time in the slower sections and really take the chunks of track position towards our leader, then we'd be talking a different story. I just haven't seen it yet today.
No, I haven't seen it yet, but it is going to be about the tight and twisty sections where Jack David Spickett's got a car that works a little bit better. The likes of the Porsche curves, for example, is going to be somewhere where he has that ability to shine. And the opening sector out there as well, which uses some of the Le Mans Bugatti circuit out there, not on the iRacing service, and the like. So there is always going to be opportunities. Antti Lepisto, for the first time, really shows some weakness there. Just overcorrecting into the corner, had to open out the steering to actually make that turn. And suddenly, JDS has got an opportunity to look down the inside.
Yeah, and he's going to take full advantage. I think Lepisto realizes that. He also realizes that Jack has caught him over the last couple laps. So maybe it's time that Lepisto follows the Pepsi machine and hopefully he can close it up to Gernot Frische. But the other thing that I think that these two drivers are fighting up against is Gernot Frische, as a driver, he typically gets faster as the race goes on.
He certainly does, and all about that pace. He has everything that he wants and then some. So there is that continuing battle out there on circuit now. Hugel and Moreland and Daniel Gallis there. That's a chop across the nose. Heavy brakes by Miguel Moreland to avoid rushing into the back of Andy Hugel there. So that could have been absolutely disastrous. Worth noting as well, AJ Roper did have a spin on that last lap, so that's why he dropped behind Barry West and Cam Porter, and now he's got to build all that gap back up again.
Well, and something that we can predict to happen here as we're watching Daniel Gallis really just kind of search for clean air. So Cam Porter at the front of this pack has pretty much the wing cranked into it. I only see about 190 miles an hour, but through this section is where he is going to be confident and run away from the three cars right behind him. So it'll be interesting. Does it force a mistake out of these three trying to keep up with him?
Take a look at the GSRC replay then here. This is AJ Roper's spin, and it's the same place that Kurt Clapper had his moment. So he's out there on the curb as he turns in, and at the moment where he wants to get it straightened up and transferred, the back has just said no.
Lots of times the drivers will carry trail brake into that first set of corners too, so I wouldn't doubt if AJ Roper was just trying to maximize the speed. And here's Cam Porter through this downforce section, really trying to take advantage. And look at all those cars slide around. Cam Porter says, thank you, I'll take the spot.
I'll have it back. Look at that. He managed to work his way through there. AJ Roper right on the ragged edge, slides it about through that section and has to fall back into line. Some very clever driving by Cam Porter to keep himself in that 11th position. A race that's all not, I would say, over and done with just yet. Jack David Spickett put a 3:20.4 on the book. His fastest lap of the day, the fastest lap of the day to catapult himself up forward. But again, he doesn't have the straight line to keep with Gernot Frische. So the question will be, can he, on his own pace, on his own merit, pull that gap in? With 2 laps to go, we're looking like it's going to be a very long story for him. It's a long shot. If he's going to make that happen, he might need a mistake out of a legend.
And the best way to think about this battle is that, yes, they are running incredibly similar pace. However, it's like an accordion, right? An accordion stretches out and then it compresses back together. And at certain parts of this racetrack, Gernot Frische stretches out that gap on the top speed, but then through the back half where he really uses the grips, no problems!
That's a huge accident there. Hugel's caught up with it. Barry West, I think, was the other one who was there. And there's always going to be drama along this long Mulsanne straight. And I believe that is just what happens when you push 3 wide. He moved over to the right-hand side there. I think Barry West, the issue he had is that he saw Miguel Moreland coming on his inside. He didn't look to his outside mirror to see Andy Hugel there.
100%, he didn't realize there was 2 cars, or at most he thought they were both passing on the same side. So Definitely a mistake out of Barry West. Collected a few of the cars, but you know what? It's been a good run so far.
Has been a good run. AJ Roper also now finally confirming that move on Cam Porter, sliding it about through Mulsanne, and is very much keeping himself in play. There's a spin, and there around goes Miguel Morland once again, so he's struggling in the lower speed. Daniel Gallis will pick up a freebie then on the penultimate lap of this race. There will be just one more lap after this to sort of figure out, but we'll take another look at this here. Look, Barry West leaves the room on the outside, but where's he going when Andy Hugel's there? Oh, that's a horrible hit. I'm sure there's still parts of Andy Hugel's car that's still traveling about the French countryside.
Well, and thankfully it's the virtual world, and it's just parts of the car traveling about the French countryside over here, Jake. And you called it right. He just didn't realize he was 3 wide, and I actually had backed it up even further. He was a little bit defensive, trying to pick whichever side of the track he wanted to be on, but back up to our leaders. Gernot Frischa has taken the white flag. All he's got to do is one more time around this place.
It was practically matching the time between himself and Jack David Spickett over that last lap. Spickett took a couple hundreds and thousandths off of it, but by no means did he have enough for a full birthday cake, so to speak. Gernot Frischa leading this race, and now all of a sudden, this is where Jack David Spickett looks comfortable. Through the twisty sections, that gap came down to 1.3 seconds heading through Tetra Rouge. But this is where, get on the power, Gernot Frischa will build his margin.
Well, it was 1.3, like you said, coming out onto the Mulsanne straightaway, but I'm noticing already up to 1.5 seconds. We're not even halfway through here, so let's check it once at the end of the Mulsanne, and then once more going into Indianapolis. I think it's going to grow going up to there.
I think there is no doubt about it. That gap is only going to skyrocket past that first chicane known as the Daytona chicane. As such, that chicane known as Daytona means that Daytona has a bus stop known as Le Mans. That's the way that chicanes work in the world of motorsport these days. That second chicane will find itself along on the left-hand side, and now it's just the small kink right along this stretch, over from roundabout to roundabout they run. It's essentially going from A road to A road, and now at the Mulsanne corner, this is where Gernot Frischa has realized this is where my advantage is. Half a second gain, half a second as he goes through, but look at it on the brakes. So much more confidence from Jack David Spickett. He pulls all that time. It's not often that you get to say it, Joey, 4/10 in the braking zone.
No, at 4/10 in the braking zone, he did leave a little bit on the table on the exit, and that's the tough part when you're in second place right now on the last lap. You're charging with your hair on fire. Everything is qualifying efforts. You're driving it at 12/10, and you just got to say, yes, you can bring it in a little bit, but don't overstep the limit, because Lepisto is close enough that if you go off the track, you're going to lose second.
You absolutely could do. Jack David Spickett throwing everything he can down, but Frischa's got an answer to everything here at Arnage. This is the final section where Spickett might have a chance, and it will be those very, very fast Porsche curves out there with Lepisto at 4 seconds back, Villiers-Kynen at 8 seconds back from this driver here. The question is going to be, what could they have done today compared to the legend of Lotus 79? Here is someone who has got 3 times as many wins in this series as anybody else, has been struggling from season to season as of recently over the last few years to find that pace once again. But this is going to be vindication of work to get back to the top of the mountain through Maison Blanche and then to the 4 chicanes in the rear Cournemont. Gernot Frischa, by every measure, was a legend, is a legend, will forever be a legend. And through the rear Cournemont, it is going to be so, so sweet as he will come to the line and take the season finale here at an incredible, incredible Le Mans. Fastest lap to boot as well.
You know, you started off the broadcast saying that this was going to be a classic race, and what is more classic than Gernot Frischa winning in Lotus 79s?
No, I don't think there's anything more that you can say about that in terms of what's a classic and what is not. Little bump off of the safer barrier for AJ Roper, looking for 9th place off of Arnold Koch. At the end of this race, Roper will be +8 if he can find this pass, but he might just be a stage too far away.
Yeah, I think he's going to be. However, we've seen problems all day long going into these final couple chicanes. So if Roper keeps it clean and Arnold kind of has a little bit of a miss-up, you just got to hit your marks. 2 more turns to go. Looks like Arnold and AJ went in there with his hair on fire, locked it up. That's going to pretty much do it. Arnold 9th, AJ Roper in the top 10.
Hey Arnold, it's your first top 10 in top split. You take that every day of the week. Kurt Clapp being close. There's a spin from Daniel Gallus here, heading towards the line. So this might be a drag race, but they're just going to be short. Heading over the line then as the final drivers go through. Barry West will be the last as he tries to limp through. So too Daniel Banker and Travis Jägerlehner looking for finishes late. With that all said, we'll let the final drivers finish. We're going to step aside for one moment on the Global SimRacing Channel. Post-race coverage brought to you after this. Quite simply put, you put a legendary track down and a legendary driver will wake up. Jarno Freitsch's second win of the season. It's very rare that you get to say second win of the season, but he has found himself with an amazing result here today. A winning margin of 2.3 over Jack David Spickett. Antti Lepisto would pick up a podium here today and prove that he's definitely got the pace to challenge as the reigning champion Kimmo Villiakainen got put in a box and effectively overdrove the car today. 4th position for him, but a champion nevertheless who has driven sensationally this season. Ferran Grau had a quiet race today. He'll find himself 5th when everything is said and done, with Timothy Vandenberg in 6th. And Dylan Freckleton up in 7th position. Ricardo Ruiz will find himself in 8th, with Arnold Koch in 9th, up in top split. He'll be very happy with that. AJ Roper would round out the top 10 on his spectacular drive up 7.
Yeah, biggest mover right there for AJ Roper. And then Cam Porter in 11th spot back here. Daniel Gallus in 12th. A good run for Daniel Gallus, up 4 as well. Miguel Moreland had a couple of those problems there at Milson Corner, finishing 13th. Kirk Clapper in 14th. Barry West in 15th back here. Daniel Banker 16th. Travis Jägerlehner in 17th. And then unfortunately for Andy Hugel and Patrick Samaran, they did not see the checkered flag today.
No, both of them end up in the scrap heap more rather than in Parc Fermé. That much is very, very clear. We do have one driver here ready to chat with us. It is, of course, Jarno Freitscher, who is here with us right now. Jarno, I have to say, that is probably as vintage of a performance as we could have possibly seen out of you. You kept the pressure up on all of the drivers out there, and I think the biggest work that you had to do today was to keep Villiakainen in check. The moment he went off the road, it looked like you had the ability to run away.
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, that was a really good one. I guess that must have been my best race in a very long time. It was quite complicated, actually. I think I made all the right choices at the right moments, because in the beginning it was really close at the top. Kimmo had very, very good pace in the beginning, and he's always starting like a rocket. Then he made some mistake. I don't know if he had damage afterwards, because he seemed to lose a bit time after that. So yeah, I had to manage Antti first, and yeah, finally Jack in the end, because Jack was also going really, really quick then.
The pace was certainly up there for you, but in terms of a season, are you looking at this thinking, okay, I've put together all the building blocks, this has been a really, really strong, positive season compared to maybe some of those previous, and are you looking at trying to get back up to the top of that mountain?
Wouldn't really say that, because that season has been half-half basically. In the beginning I had quite some PC system troubles, so I missed a lot of good finishes. My pace was not that bad also in the beginning of the season, but I seemed to pick up a bit towards the end. So yeah, it's quite promising for next season maybe, but you never know, because the competition is so strong, and people like Kimmo and JDS, the other Finns as well, so they always push the limits, and it's really hard to stay close to the podium finishes.
Yeah, so the limits are certainly there. The competition's definitely heating up. But for someone like you who has been around this Lotus 79 for so long, what is it for you that makes this car the one that you want to drive on iRacing more than any other?
I think it's two things. It's the car. I like open wheelers. I like classic Formula One. I think this is a real car without any gimmicks, so pure driving. The other one is the community. This is a small tight-knit community, so you keep racing against the same opponents every single week, and it's like racing a league. So I think it's the best place to be within iRacing. It has always been for me, and it looks like it will be in the future as well.
Well, you heard it here first. Geno, the floor is yours. Anybody you'd like to thank? It is a victory here at the Circuit des 24 Hours du Mans.
Yes, usually thanks you guys. The broadcasts are always really, really good, and I like to watch part of the races afterwards. And I also have to say thanks to the Lotus community, to all the people doing the organization stuff, which is a lot of work and yeah, also time consuming. And also to Steve Bycroft, because he helped me with my system issues in the beginning of the season, and now it's running stable again, so I'm very thankful for that. Bye-bye.
No worries at all. Geno Freach, they're a deserving winner here in this final race of the season. We do have one other driver to have a chat with. Joey Atterbury's walked down the paddock. He's found Cam Porter.
Cam Porter, congratulations, 11th place, and it looked like you had your hands full with a fun race the entire time.
Yeah, that was really thrilling. Really enjoyed that one. It was marred a little bit by some contact with Miguel. I have to apologize for him. He was going for an F2 championship. I didn't realize that at the time. I knew I was running really low, or I was running higher downforce than everyone else who was running low downforce. And so I feel like I knew I could make a move going into that corner. Admittedly, it was a little late. In my defense, he didn't leave me much room on the apex either. So I feel bad about that incident, of course. No apologies to Miguel. But that was a really thrilling race, regardless. Really had fun. Got murdered on the straights. But I was passing people on the outside of the Porsche curve, so there was some trade-offs there.
At one point, I thought Barry West had a slowdown and you had some turbo rocket boosters on, because going into those Porsche curves and whatnot, just what was that like, having the grip and the confidence and having other people out there that you could just drive right on by?
that was really bonkers. You know, I Canducci, Robert Bromley won a race earlier in the week using just the iRacing null set, so I figured, everyone else is going to be running the really low downforce set, and Robert was gaining so much time in the Porsche curves. So I knew I had the grip to challenge people right there, but it was just a matter of like hanging with them close enough, and on the straights that I could make a challenge into the Porsche curves there. And if I had enough room, I could basically make it to Mulsanne and just stay or pull a gap. But yeah, just once we got to the Mulsanne straight, I was getting eaten up. If I was close enough to other cars, I think I could, hold enough speed that, I could keep my progress going forward. But yeah, I'm very happy with that result today.
Well, Cam, I just want to say thank you for coming out and racing with us all the time. You're one of our regular competitors through a variety of the different series. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Shout out to my brother Tim, who couldn't make the Lotus 49 race this week because he's traveling. But he'll be back next season, I'm sure, for some more fun.
Well, shout out indeed to Tim, and we always love seeing the brothers out there on the racetrack. And Cam, congrats on that 11th place finish in another season. Well done.
Thanks, Joey. See you next season.
That was driver of the 10, finishing in 11th, Jake.
Yeah, and I'm sure over the 12 races that he's had, he's got 13 reasons to be happy. I want to give a massive thanks to everybody then who has helped get this one done as we bring another successful season over to a close in the Lotus 79 Sunday Grand Prix Series. And that, of course, includes the music that you've heard today from June Lalonde, as well as all the equipment that is used to get this show over to you. From the entire team here, of course, from Joey, from Daniel, and of course from Dougie as well. We want to give a massive thank you for being along with us for the ride and watching some amazing sim racing action week in, week out, year in, year out. But we do have to note that we will be coming back a couple weeks from now to get a brand new season sorted and to get everything in line. But there is so much amazing racing, including that which is coming along in just under an hour, the Major Series Atlantic region at the Nürburgring. You want to stay with us at the Global SimRacing Channel for that. You can follow us on our socials. You can go to our website. You can go to our merch store and get your amazing GSRC merch. All the other broadcasts are scrolling across your screen. Mark them in the calendar if you haven't already. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, race clean, race hard, and we will see you next season.
Oh.